Morning, friends. Well, it's good morning where you are, or when you are, or maybe not, but this is going live on Monday morning at 9 a.m. Although for me, it is Saturday afternoon, just a few minutes before 3 o'clock. Hi, I'm Brian. I'm the pastor at Christ United Methodist Church. It's great to be the pastor at this church and great to be with you this morning as we continue our journey through the book of Mark. As I mentioned in the video for yesterday's, uh, got some family stuff to take care of today that I'm going to be tied up with. I can't be in two places at once, so I can't be in front of my computer doing this video. So that's why I'm doing a recording, but you're going to see it live Monday morning at 9 o'clock on our daily chapter reading, a chapter of the day of the Bible. And today we are on chapter 7 of the book of Mark, the Gospel of Mark, excuse me, or Mark's biography of Jesus, if that works better for you. I kind of like that term anymore. I've been using that a lot, talking rather than calling them the Gospels, referring to them as their biographies of Jesus. So I think it sounds pretty cool. Anyway, so we're working on that, and we're on chapter 7. There's only 16 chapters, so after tomorrow, Tuesday, which will be live, by the way, we'll be live the rest of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or we should be. I hope to be live each of those days. Don't have anything planned that's going to keep me away from it, but you never know if something's going to come up. Sorry, I was looking at my calendar just to make sure. So anyway, we are, after tomorrow, we'll be halfway through. So today we're on chapter 7, and let's get right to it, shall we? I think I mentioned yesterday that Restream only allows me 30 minutes with these pre-recorded things. A little bit easier with Mark than it was with Exodus, trying to keep it under time. So, chapter 7, verse 1. One day, some Pharisees and teachers of religious law arrived from Jerusalem to see Jesus. They noticed that some of his disciples failed to follow the Jewish ritual of hand washing before eating. Pause. Should have paused after the first verse. Never mind the second one. So, and again, if you remember your map from the other day, we've got the entire nation of Israel, or what was once the nation of Israel, and split in half. Down here is the southern kingdom, the northern kingdom. The southern kingdom became Judea, the northern kingdom became Israel. By the time of Jesus, it's actually three sections now. Still have the Judean region down here. In the middle, you've got the region of Samaria, and then up here in the north is the region of Galilee, and that's where Jesus is spending most of his time. That's where he's spent all of his time so far, according to this biography. But these religious leaders are coming from Jerusalem, which is down in the southern kingdom, the southern section. It's down in Judea. So they had to come up, probably not through Samaria. They probably would have gone around Samaria to get up there. So we're talking anywhere from 8 to 12 days journey, walking. I mean, if they rode some donkeys or camels or something, it might have taken them a little bit less, but not a whole lot. Not a whole lot, because it's not easy to do, to get from the south to the north, going around Samaria. Continuing. Oh, and they did it because they wanted to talk to this guy and find out what's going on. They're hearing about him, probably already a little bit disturbed. They've probably gotten word from some of the other Pharisees from the northern area that have reported down to them. And while there, they noticed that some of his disciples failed to follow the Jewish ritual of hand washing before eating. This isn't just a hand washing like we would do. You know, I mean, you go in, you wash your hands, and it's a good thing to do. Keep yourself clean. You're not putting germs in your mouth. You're not putting COVID in your mouth or on your face, because you're washing your hands, keeping yourself clean. We're talking about a ceremonial washing. So let's not think that the disciples are eating without at least wiping their hands off. But we're talking about a very ceremonial washing. It's not using a whole lot of water even, but it's pouring it in a certain way, and there's a whole ritual involved in it. And Jesus' disciples aren't doing it. It's not a law. It's not a legal restriction from Scripture. This comes from a tradition. This comes from a tradition. There's a difference between traditions and laws. And this is coming from a tradition. So continuing, the Jews, especially the Pharisees, do not eat until they have poured water over their cupped hands, as required by their ancient traditions. Similarly, they don't eat anything from the market until they immerse their hands in water. This is but one of many traditions they have clung to, such as their ceremonial washing of cups, pitchers, and kettles. Pause. So there, that's very clear. Maybe I should have just waited and read the whole thing, right? Ceremonial washing, ceremonial cleansing, ceremonially pouring water, dipping hands in water. It's an act. Okay, it's a rite, R-I-T-E, ceremonial rite, and it's something that they're performing and doing, mostly to be seen, probably. So the Pharisees and teachers of religious law asked them, "Why don't your disciples follow our age-old tradition? They eat without first performing the hand-washing ceremony." Jesus replied, "You hypocrites! Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you, for he wrote, 'Those people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Their worship is a farce, for they teach man-made ideas as commands from God. For you ignore God's law and substitute your own tradition.'" Then he said, "You skillfully sidestep God's law in order to hold on to your old traditions. For instance, Moses gave you this law from God: honor your father and mother. And anyone who speaks disrespectfully of father or mother must be put to death. But you say it is all right for people to say to their parents, 'Sorry, I can't help you, for I have vowed to give to God what I would have given to you.' In this way, you let them disregard their needy parents. And so you cancel the word of God in order to hand down your own traditions. And this is only one example among many others." Pause. Scathing, scathing indictment of these Pharisees and their actions, and based on one of the 10 commandments: honor your mother and father, right? Father and mother in this case. Honor your father and mother. Now, if you followed me through Exodus, you know this, but maybe you know this, maybe it slipped. So this is a refresher for you, and if you're just joining me for the first time, this might be new for you. The 10 Commandments were not written for children; they were written for adults. So when honor your father and mother is not intended for a 5-year-old or 7-year-old to pay attention to their father and mother, although that's a good thing to do. There's other scriptures we can look to for that kind of instruction. This is for an adult person to take care of their more adult parent. Okay, you're honoring them. The word honor we could probably translate or take over as take care of. That's what it's all about. And Jesus is specific. They're needy parents. What I would have given to you, I'm going to give to God. Now, what you would have given to your parents, you're saying you're going to give to the temple or to the synagogue, and that's okay. It's a man-made tradition. That's not the command from God, and it's not living. Not only is it not living up to the letter of the law, it's not even anywhere close to living to the spirit of the law. So it's a scathing indictment of their behavior. He didn't pull any punches on this group. Then Jesus called to the crowd and to come and hear. "All of you, listen," he asked. "Can't you see that the food you put into your body cannot defile you? Food doesn't go into your heart, but only passes through the stomach and then goes out into the sewer." By saying this, he declared that every kind of food is acceptable in God's eyes. Pause. That's an addition. That's an editorial statement by Mark. That's not exactly what Jesus was saying, and that's not even what he was saying in this passage here. We have to wait until the book of Acts, when Peter has his experience with the sheet load of food coming down on God and saying, "Get up and kill what I have created. How can you call it bad?" Jesus isn't getting into that argument. This is what he's talking about. He's talking about well, food doesn't go into your heart. What does go into your heart are the things you think and say and do. Those reflect your heart, and that's what's going to make your heart clean or unclean. Clean or unclean. What you experience with your eyes and your ears and your mouth and your hands is what's going to demonstrate and clarify where your heart, what the condition of your heart is, and it's going to impact your heart, not the food you eat. And then he added, "It is what comes from inside that defiles you. For from within, out of a person's heart, come evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, wickedness, deceit, lustful desires, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. All these vile things come from within. They are what defile you." Okay, pause. So you can see my point. You can see Jesus's point, I'm sure. Continuing, then Jesus left Galilee and went north to the region of Tyre, which would have been across the border into Syrophoenicia. He didn't want anyone to know which house he was staying in, but he couldn't keep it a secret. Right away, a woman who had heard about him came and fell at his feet. Her little girl was possessed by an evil spirit, and she begged him to cast out the demon from her daughter. Since she was a Gentile born in Syrian Phoenicia, Jesus told her, "First I should feed the children, my own family, the Jews. It isn't right to take food from the children and throw it to the dogs." Pause. Ooh. Now, of course, we have a high impression of dogs. Well, many of us do anyway. We do. And when we hear the word dog, we're thinking, family pet, almost a member of the family, that kind of thing. That's not exactly the term that Jesus was using when he pretty much calls her a dog. It's nowhere near that high of a thing. It's a stray feral dog, not a family pet. Let's kind of think of it that way. All right, continuing. She replied, "That's true, Lord, but even the dogs under the table are allowed to eat the scraps from the children's plates." Pause. So although Jesus is talking about dogs in a different way, she brings it back in as being part of the family. That's awesome. That's awesome. "Good answer," he said. "Now go home, for the demon has left your daughter." And when she arrived home, she found her little girl lying quietly in bed, and the demon was gone. Continuing, Jesus left Tyre and went up to Sidon before going back to the Sea of Galilee in the region of the 10 towns. Pause. So he's all over the map, literally on this one, because everything is on the left hand. Yeah, the left. Let's say change that, Brian. The western side of the Sea of Galilee, right? He was in Nazareth, which is down here. He's gone up to Tyre, which is sort of on the border on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea, in Syrophoenicia, and he's gone up a little bit farther north to Sidon, which is also on a seaport. It's also a seaport, and it's also still in Syrophoenicia. But now he's coming around to the 10 towns, which isn't like straight down or even straight down and a little bit to the east. He had to go way east and go probably around the Sea of Galilee to get over to the region of the 10 towns, which is Gentile territory on the eastern shore of the Sea of Galilee. A deaf man with a speech impediment was brought to him, and the people begged Jesus to lay his hand on the man to heal him. Jesus led him away from the crowd so they could be alone. He put his fingers into the man's ears. Then, spitting on his own fingers, he touched the man's tongue. Looking up to heaven, he sighed and said, Ephphatha, which means be opened. Instantly, the man could hear perfectly, and his tongue was freed so he could speak plainly. Jesus told the crowd not to tell anyone, but the more he told them not to, the more they spread the news. They were completely amazed and said again and again, everything he does is wonderful. He even makes the deaf to hear and gives speech to those who cannot speak. End of chapter 8. So, and again, this is tying back into yesterday's reading, how limited Jesus was able to do in his own. I mean, it only makes it that much more powerful in my mind, how little Jesus was able to do in Nazareth, where everybody knew him as a child and a young man. He goes to these other places and can do so much more. So and he encounters this Syrian woman in Tyre who has more faith, it would seem, than anyone in the town of Nazareth. She's able to cure her daughter from a distance, even when he had trouble doing little things in his own town. There wasn't enough faith there. Wow. Great stuff. Great stuff. Great stuff. All right, folks. That's it for chapter 7. That's it for chapter 7. Tomorrow we will be back live at 9 o'clock with chapter 8. So if you want to read ahead, you can read ahead, but you don't have to. We'll just read it together tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Again, my friends, thank you for joining me. I pray this is beneficial. I pray that you heard something new. I pray that God has opened up something to you today through what I have said. As you go about your day, today and every day, always be on the lookout for what God is doing in your life and the life of those around you. When you see it, when you hear it, say, thanks, Papa, and then tell somebody, especially me. I want to hear. I want to know. Until tomorrow, my friends, be blessed. Be blessed.